Our orders are to take you back, dead or alive. Which will it be, engineer? Why don't you come and find out, Tinhead? Ah, Sophie, it is well that you are here. The situation grows grave. Biggs is in a bad way. We need to do something right now. Ida has the right of it. He will perish if we delay. With me. He's not alone. Kill them all. I just love that little hopping up and down monk thing, don't they? Okay, I feel like this guy's gonna be a pain in the butt to kill. You can kind of tell after you hit somebody a few times if they're like the boss. I couldn't remember. But let's clear all these other guys out. You think you can stop me, Mr. Marauder Man? I will mess your face up. Yay, I win. My thanks. Another moment, and I would have had, He has been too long in the cold. We must find shelter for him. Monument Tower, you say? Very well, Ida and I shall bear him there with all haste. Sid will be so happy to see Biggs and Wedge again. Aw, I love reunions. I cannot thank you enough, Sophie, and the same goes for the rest of you. Thank you so much. Oh, don't mention it. We are family, are we not? Well, yes, it's just I didn't think I'd ever see him again. I owed a lot of you my life. And you saved Wedges too, Sophie. I'm losing count of how many I owe you. 3. You're up to 3 now. Biggs, Wedge, gods, it's good to see the two of you again. Chief, it's you, it's really you. In our hearts, we knew you were still alive, but to finally see you in the flesh. When Alpino told me of the raid on the Waking Sands, I feared the worst. What happened? The enemy struck with nary a warning. We didn't stand a chance. Wedge and I were in the workshop when they came. Before we knew what was happening, the Imperials had us at gunpoint. It must have been awful. There's one thing I don't understand though. How did the Garleans get here so fast? I mean, the immortal flames should have seen them coming, right? I myself have asked the same question. That day, when I returned to the carnage at the Waking Sands, I noted not a miss in horizon, nothing at all to suggest the passing of an Imperial horse. From this I conclude that the Garleans came neither by land nor by air. Nay, they were born there by potent teleportation magics of the kind used by the Asians. Carry on. We were bound and blindfolded and bundled into the cargo bay of a waiting airship. I can't rightly say how long we were aboard, but when the time came for us to disembark, we found ourselves in the midst of an Imperial stronghold, Castrum Sentry. Upon arrival, we were marched off into the main complex. Biggs and I were thrown into a detainment cell together, while Minfilia and the others were taken elsewhere. That was the last we heard from them. Castrum Sentry. What happened next? Well, we were held in isolation for what felt like years, but was probably moons, or maybe only weeks. And then, without warning, the Imperials collected the pair of us and put us on another vessel, which we found out was bound for Garlemald, much to our dread. We knew that if we were taken back there, we weren't like to leave again. So, risky though it was, we sabotaged the ship's altitude control, and thereby enforced an emergency landing. And in the midst of the ensuing chaos, we managed to slip our captors. The rest, as they say, is history. Ha! If I didn't know better, I'd call that a likely story. Sabotaging the altitude controls of an airship vessel? That will have been Biggs' handiwork. Like as not, you always were resourceful in a tight spot, my friend. We're all laughing and having fun because we're friends. Sophie, thank you for returning my dear assistance to me. It would seem I owe you yet another debt of gratitude. You're up to 2. There are still many questions in my mind, but the answers can wait. Minfilia and the others have still want for rescue. Alright, you lot. Garland Ironworks is back in business. Let's go and give the Imperials what for. Hurrah! Thanks to you, Biggs and Wedge are with us again. Now, we must find a way to rescue Minfilia and the others. Gods know we've kept them waiting too long already. Based on what we've learned, I believe it's safe to say they're being held at Castrum Sentry. So let us convene at Revan's Toll in Mordona. 'Tis a good place, as good a place as any to prepare, and better than most. The road leading east, then south will get you there. When we arrive, let us seek the advice of the local adventurers. We're bound to learn a thing or two that will benefit our mission. Oh man, let me tell you right now, I've been waiting to get to Mordona. I got some talking to do about Mordona. Let me tell you, there are some stories about Mordona. Alright, so welcome to what is now Mordona. This... Wow, the sky looks pretty. Oh boy. I don't know how much I want to go into depth right away, but I will tell you this. If you played the game at launch, Mordona was a very important area for endgame players for a lot of different reasons, which we'll get into. But I will also tell you that this is not what Mordona looked like when the game came out. This is not even close. All this paved roadway and stuff, where it looks like an actual city, none of this existed. There was no benches, there were no walls and buildings. None of these buildings existed except for two buildings. There were two buildings and they were made out of wood. And one was this building right here, and the other was this building over here. And you'll see why in a minute, but that's it. Those are the only two buildings, and there was no stone, there was no pavement. It was all dirt. It was more like a bunch of huts and camps than an actual city. Well met, friend. What brings you to Revenant's Toll? Did I hear you rightly? Your friends are being held captive at Castrum Sentry, and you want to rescue them? I don't mean to discourage you, but that might prove difficult. The stronghold has been on high alert of late, with armored patrols seen about the perimeter around the clock. Not even a fly could get within 100 yards of the walls undetected. The Garleans were alerted to our coming. We cannot know what they will do to Minfilia and the others. We must act with the greatest stealth. Aye, it has to be good old-fashioned infiltration. But with security so tight, how are we going to smuggle ourselves in? Why, I've a mind to walk through the front door. Huh? The front door? Aye, we'll disguise ourselves as Imperial troops and march right in. For this, we need a few sets of Imperial uniforms, a suit of Magitech armor, and impeccable timing. Heh, that's a bold strategy, and it just might work. Where we are, there's certainly no shortage of opportunities to borrow the equipment. Knowing those Imperial bastards, they won't even suspect that we savage Eorzeans would think to use their technology. Then it's settled. If you're determined to go ahead with this, I'd recommend you speak with Glaumut. The fellow's got a personal grudge against the Empire, and happens to know a deal about Castrum Sentry besides. I have no doubt that he'd want to be of aid. Ida and I shall go to reconnoiter Garlean activity at the stronghold. It would not do if something were to befall our comrades before we had the chance to act. Come and join us when you're ready, Sophie. Let's do this. Do it. Sometimes I wonder, Ida, are there ever times when you are not enthused? I'm nothing if not enthused, Y'shtola, and you're beginning to remind me of Papalimo. So I'm just gonna go through a real quick Revenant's Toll thing. This slope always existed. It was always a dirt path though. This hut's pretty much the exact same as it was. These are all exchange for tombstones, and they were always there, but instead of a building, they were inside like a giant circus tent type thing. So kind of like two tents right next to each other. This building over here did not exist. This building over here did not exist. And all this back here is new too. And I mean all of it. Like, I don't even think most of these NPCs were here. And I know for a fact, instead of this building over here and all of these market stalls, what there actually was, and I know this for a fact because this is where I used to hang out, were like vegetable gardens. So there was like a big vegetable garden here, and then another one over here. There were a couple NPCs that were like gardening, like messing around with the vegetables or watering them. And this is why I know this for a fact, is because so when original launch of of the game, of A Realm Reborn, before the first big patch, the 2.1 patch, there was, if I recall correctly, there was a duty finder, but it was very limited. And what I do know, 100%, I know this is a fact. I actually even double checked this just a little while ago because I knew I was going to tell this story. There was not roulettes. So when you go into the duty finder now, you have these roulettes. I only have leveling, but then later on there will also be trials, and then there will be main story quest, and then there will be level 50, 60, 70, and then there's level 80 roulettes now, and then there's what's called expert roulettes, and I think that's all of them. And they did not exist. Okay, so there was a duty finder. It was not as well designed as it is now. It got a huge upgrade in 2.1, and the reason I know this is because I remember playing the game and my friends and I watching the previews for 2.1, and they had an entire video about what they were doing to add to the duty roulette thing. And I remember it so well because one of the important things was, like, you could queue up for roulette. Well, first off, roulettes were being added, but you could queue up for a duty as a tank and then switch to any other thing you wanted to do. So if you wanted to go craft or go fishing or go level up an a second class or something, you could switch. And then when the duty would pop, you could switch back, this is what you can do now, but you could switch back and then go into the dungeon. You didn't used to be able to do that. Like, you used to queue up as a paladin, and you had to stay as a paladin while you were in queue. So that was like a whole wow! Like, we all got so excited. Mordana was, rather than Toll here, was like a huge deal because this is where the in-game people were. All down here, this is all dirt and stuff, mind you, but all down here would be just all the in-game players would be in here. And the reason for this is because this is where people would recruit for raiding the Coils of Bahamut. This is where people would search for groups to do the hard modes of the Ifrit and Titan and Garuda. And this is where people would hang out in between their doing duties, because you would do your duties and get your tombstones, and you'd come over here and trade your tombstones in and get your gear upgrades. So it was just easier to be here. So everybody was here, right? And so what would happen for me is when I was queued, I would just sit here and run back and forth, weaving my way between the different vegetables, and I would just run all day in between vegetables while I was in queue. And back then we didn't have Discord, we had Ventrilo, and I would sit in Ventrilo and talk with people, and I'd usually queue with one or two people that were in my FC, and we would just sit and wait for our queues to pop. That was what you would do all day. That was in-game at launch. And it sounds horrible, right? Like, when I tell my friends about that now, they're just like, wow, I don't think I could. How did you even, what did you do without duty roulettes? And well, the answer was there was one dungeon that's not in main story quest, that's not Orumvale, the level 50 dungeon that was in the game at launch called in Dapador Keep, and you would run that and you would get gear from that, and then you would upgrade that gear with tombstones later, and that was the main thing. That was what you would do. So everybody knew that dungeon really well. that was what you did. It's totally different now. Now you just click this button and then you pick this thing and then you hit join. It's totally different now, but I just thought it was a fun story. I thought you guys might enjoy knowing. I don't know when exactly they changed Revenant's Toll. I want to say it was during Heaven's Word, but I don't remember exactly when it was. But it's gone now, like the old version is gone. That was a lot of story, I'm sorry, but I thought it was something fun that you might enjoy knowing. And that doesn't even talk about people selling hard mode Titan runs and stuff, and we'll talk about that another time, but I just thought I'd share. Looking for Glamut, are ya? Well, you found him, whoever you are. Eh? You're looking to get inside Castrum Sentry and you need my help. Something tells me we're gonna get along just fine. So, you have friends at Castrum Sentry what want for rescue. That Slapborn knows me too well. Aye, you can count on my help. I've got a score to settle with the Imperials, and I never pass an opportunity to get back at the Whoresuns. But enough about me, let's talk strategy. Rescuing folk from captivity's right delicate business. A single oversight, just one little blunder, and it's all over. You can't leave any room for uncertainty. For starters, you need to confirm beyond the shadow of a doubt that your friends are where you think they are. You don't want to risk your neck only to discover they've been moved elsewhere. But how can you find out, you ask? By following these instructions. If you approach Sentry from the east, you'll see a swampland to your left called a tangle. Get in there, never mind all those morbals, and navigate your way to the southwestern corner. You'll come upon some drainage pipes coming down from the stronghold. Don't ask me how I know, but one of them leads back up to the command tower. If you listen closely, might be as you can eavesdrop on some of the happenings within. Once we know for certain your friends are there, we'll move to the next stage of the operation. Now, get going and Godspeed. What is going on with the music right now? The faint sound of conversation echoes down the pipe. What of the captive? Does she still refuse to speak? She may as well be a deaf mute for all the information we've gotten out of her. The others aren't much better. The Elizin gets on my nerves most of all. Every time he opens his mouth, it's only to spout gibberish. I do wonder, why is the Tribunus so obsessed with this Menphilia woman? They say she possesses some mystical power, something we Garleans don't have. Mystical power? Like the kind the Beastmen use? How am I supposed to bloody know? If you're so curious, why don't you ask the Tribunus yourself? As well try to tumble her. I like my head where it is, thank you very much. Our break is over. Best we get back to our stations. I'm not sure what he was saying there. The footfalls grow fainter until all is silent.